and we have Professor James McCANNEY here. And, of course, his website, his home website is jmccsci.com. We have direct links to his wing generator program at the top of our announcements and notices. Also a link directly on our associates page, front page Nutrimedical, to his DVDs, books, etc. Give us a progress on the wing generator project and all the other major topics we're talking about in terms of astrophysics, extreme weather we're seeing all over the world now, and other important science with what's going on right now.
See, Dr. Bell, the wing generator project, because, like you were saying, the 4th of July is a bit slow, the funding slowed down. And so, in fact, summer in general, I had to do a funding effort, or September would be a time. But that being okay. Let's say.
I think we're going to try to reconnect Professor McCANNEY because you're breaking up badly. Somehow your Skype connection would seem to be good on the break, but it's kind of go bup bup bup. So let's reconnect and we'll continue. Okay, we'll reconnect. Just take a second. We'll have our board op. Tom, reconnect you. Here, I want to talk about a couple of things. Firstly, there's a lot of disinformation out in the news there in the blogosphere, misquoting Professor McCANNEY from other information. And there's a program called the Light of Day Show putting out information that basically is trying to say things that are out of context, saying that Professor McCANNEY's talked about a mini solar system moving into our solar system, etc. First off, we know that there is a deep space object, but it doesn't have to come in and connect at a distance out in the Oort cloud. It can sit in hyperelliptical comets. It can have action at a distance that can have catastrophic effects on our weather and our sun, which is increasing radiation from the sun, ultraviolet light B and C. It can have all kinds of effects where it doesn't even become visible. And if this object does come in even at 55 million miles away through the orbit of Jupiter and Mars, which it may at some point cross the ecliptic of the solar plane, the fact is it's not going to have direct kind of impact on the planet Earth, but it's going to have indirect reaction at a distance that can have things like catastrophic earthquakes, volcanoes, extreme weather, EMPs, damage to our grid system, etc. So, Professor McCANNEY, do we have you back?
Yes, Dr. Bill. What were you saying? This clown on?
There's a program called the Light of Day Show, and there's archives there. And I'm thinking, why do people take these things out of context? And I want you to respond to this because there's a lot of information on the blogosphere. There's also these people out there called remote viewers.
People have been, these people, this clown, and not even really notoriety to mention the name, has been told. There was kind of a mini group of these. By the way, he's associated with Marshall Masters.
Right.
And they're constantly trying to promote their baloney using my name, and they've been told to cease and desist using my name, my show. There used to be a clown associated with them that would actually play my radio show and bought airtime playing weird space music and all of this. And when I called up the station where they were playing it, they said, well, they said they had your permission. I said, no, they don't. They've been told to cease and desist. They pulled them off the air right there. But, these clowns keep doing this. But these people are nobodies. They have no information. They have these thinking they're getting the word out, and they're not doing anything. They're creating a bunch of misinformation, and they're not getting the word out on anything because the word they're getting out is garbage. So anyway, I don't want to waste of airtime. But I didn't even know that cloud was around anymore.
Yeah, well, they are. And the fact is, a lot of this stuff actually gets pressed because they put it out on YouTube, and most people don't have very much discernment. Now, we want to dissect it down. On the last show, we did 3 segments with Dr. Fred Graves. So we've actually dissected the fact is...
By the way, Dr. Bill, let me interrupt you. If you see links on YouTube, or anybody else does, please make sure I get those, because it takes a little bit of effort, but YouTube will take those down as unauthorized use of copyrighted material.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
or what they do also is they'll take segments of
forward all
various
those.
previous shows or videos or DVDs or shows
Yes.
you've done, say, on DirecTV. They're taking out of context. Now, you and I know there are 10,000 red dwarfs or brown dwarf stars in the galaxy for every star. So you have 460 billion stars. You can multiply that by 10,000, and only 10% are entrained in a hyperelliptical orbit with a star system, either trinary or binary. So the fact is that 73% of the star systems in our galaxy are binary or trinary, and 13% are trinary. The fact is that it's very rare to actually have a single star that doesn't have an entrained object around it that is producing more, say, ultraviolet light or infrared light or X-rays. For example, Jupiter, by that definition, is a star because it generates more infrared light and X-rays than it receives from the sun. The fact is we got a situation here where you're the leading astrophysicist in Tier 1 science that tells people that the weather system is driven by plasma physics, that earthquakes and volcanoes are triggered off by plasma physics, which is why the globalists taking science that you've published have used it to try to control the weather, to trigger off earthquakes and volcanoes, and have weaponized the planet. And this is extremely dangerous, and they're also putting in what are called drivers where they don't know the consequences of it. For example, right now we've got this strange, we've called summer polar vortex, where there's a front right across North America, right through the middle, where on the eastern side of it they're getting flooded, like in St. Louis, and then on the western side we've got this massive drought that's artificially created. Even today, we've had some thunderstorms, but the amount of rain falling, and they're saying, well, why is there a drought here? How come they don't see the clouds? Or, as you mentioned, you have technology that's very simple to punch electron streams literally from the cloud to the ground, and the ion stream goes out, so you create low pressure zones. Those technologies, you've actually published that 20 years ago. What's happening is, rather than solutions, because I flew in light planes in the 1960s with my uncles who flew light planes, we went up and you could see the clouds back then. This is 50 years ago. Why is it a problem now? It's a problem because they want it to be a problem. The globalists, the state controllers, people like Jerry Brown here in the state, who must be a high priest of something evil. Why are these people saying there is no primary water? They don't want the North American Water Power Project. They could even have a project like they have in Carlsbad, where the largest outside the Middle Eastern desalination plant is going to be operational within 6 months. Why don't they talk about these things? Why don't they just seed the clouds? You know why? They want massive depopulation. They want a crisis. They're the crisis masters. They don't want an energy system like yours, which is not alternative energy, it's replacement energy. They don't want a legal system where everyone becomes a pro-litigant activist like Professor Dr. Fred Graves, and they actually challenge every legal action in the state court, the federal court, lawsuits, etc., and haul these politicians into a court setting, and the Supreme Court justice start to impeach them or challenge them in the Supreme Court. They don't want that. They don't want somebody like yourself who says that the astrophysics of things like near space objects and astrophysics of the galaxy are important. And because we don't have a collaboration with scientists in Russia and China that could get the actionable technology into space to protect us from space weather and near space objects, because I took care of employees working at U.S. Space Command strategic events in Star Wars, and they were always having screw-ups. I remember panic attacks and employees coming in a panic attack seeing me because they had near space objects whiz by the Earth and they had no idea it was coming. We're not talking about little things the size of a pencil lead. We're talking about things the size of a Winnebago or the size of Luxembourg, zipping past the Earth, and so many, we call lunar it was called lunar radii. It's just sickening how we pretend to be in control of situations, and we try to suppress Tier 1 science, and we try to pretend there's no solutions because we maintain a good connection there. What's really important to people understand is that there's real simple solutions to these problems. You've got the wing generator. We have light sail. We talked about with my niece, Danielle Fong. We have situations where the legal issues can be dealt with. Literally, the financial situation. I tell people, number one, get out of debt. Have three types of things you invest in. Number one, have prepper supplies, have some gold and silver, have all your nutraceuticals, and get away from as much medicines. Get your skill sets up so you have basic trauma, basic cardiac life support, and things for splints and wounds and so on. Have lots of Nutridyne and silver because they're going to release plagues. The only way they can get the public to collaborate with a global police state is if they have you scared to death that you're going to die of a super plague. And the fact is, when they have jade helmet, these are just what I call terror pornography, and they're putting the public response to that in supercomputers to see if they can predict public behavior to their craziness. The fact is they can't, and this is a message for you idiots out there in the government and the globalists. You can't do martial law, so stop trying, because the more you try to do it, the more you're going to increase gun sales, the more you're going to organize the public, the more you're going to tick people off. The same way as the 7 years now we've had of Obama has guaranteed people we have to put a strong president that'll put a strong foreign policy, get rid of the bank debt, get the Glass-Steagall in, start reversing the actions of the illegal presidential executive orders, and start restraining the Supreme Court from legislating from the bench. All these things can happen, but we have simple solutions, and if we don't do it, we should be collaborating with the Russians and Chinese rather than fighting with them. It's just sickening that I see us fighting with these guys when things like space weather, and there is an object out in deep space that's pushing in hyperelliptical comets. I can't tell you when it's going to come in, but action at a distance, it doesn't even have to come into our inner solar system to cause a lot of havoc here. Already, extreme weather is rocking the planet, on top of the idiots geoengineering trying to see if they can control the weather systems, and they're doing a very poor job of it, aren't they?
Well, Dr. Bill, on the break, I was telling you that what I see is in the next possibly weeks or by fall, the Obama trying to try a preemptive nuclear. This sounds insane, but if you look at what's going on, the massive amount of tank and armored personnel carrier into Europe, these vehicles coming trains in the United States, and everybody's going, where are these going?
In other words, they're arming the front with Russia like crazy. And then Chris Christie says last night on Fox News they're going to put a whole pile of missiles in Poland. Does that mean you really do want World War III, idiots? Right?
It's technology to shoot Russian. That's like a for to respond, and that gives us full bore access to into oblivion.
Right.
And that's what the globalists want to do, because Putin out of the euro, out of the petrodollar.
Right.
And so that's what's going on here. I mean, it's the same thing as Gaddafi, the same thing as Saddam Hussein. Now it's Russia, but Russia is a bigger piece of
right. That's why the Saudi Arabians drive their price of oil so low to try to harm Russia. There was a couple of years ago, before the previous king of Saudi Arabia died, he made some very nasty comments, and so did King Salman, the current idiot in chief over there, against Mr. Putin. And he basically challenged him, and Putin said, I'll fry Riyadh, Saudi Arabia with nukes. Saudi Arabia, in the same way with Turkey, Turkey's now trying to say they want to help Greece because they're terrified Russia's going to put in pipelines to Greece, and the Chinese are going to modernize ports and their tourism and everything. They're willing to come in with hundreds of billions of dollars and stop the craziness that's crushing the Greek people. Well, we talked about this in the first hour with Harley Schlanger. They're going to be in marches this coming weekend because we're all Greeks, he says, across Europe. That means that this whole system is coming down, and the answer of the globalists, well, we don't give a rat's behind. We're going to start World War III, and we're going to teach you a lesson. We're going to kill you all with a thermonuclear, scalar, and biological war. We're not even going to worry about incoming space objects or meteor storm or extreme weather or geotectonic events happening from action at a distance. The fact is that we need to be collaborating with Russia and China, the most advanced space nations, right now, because we're in a pre-catastrophe. And you can see it coming. The globalists, part of the reason why they have this geoengineering of the weather isn't just because they want to cause drought and so on, which is another thing, but it's to try to counteract the effects of weather modification caused by deep space gravity waves coming in from this object that's starting to screw up our weather patterns. And it's not a 1,000-year cycle. This is a cycle that is against the normal cycle to cause a Maunder cooling ice age, which would increase rainfall to the southwest U.S. What they're doing is they're screwing up because they don't know what they're doing. And the problem is we have globalists who want to reduce the population. They're basically building bunkers underground all over the world, all these nations, like crazy, because they know disaster is coming, and they're not doing anything to publicly collaborate with nations. They're getting ready for World War III. It's all nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. The signs in Greece, I'm getting my news from outside the U.S., the signs in Greece said, jail the bankers. They want to put the bankers in jail, just like Iceland. They know what their problem is. And it's rather comical to see the European bankers or in Germany saying, we're going to give you an offer, but you have to have more austerity. And the Greek people are like flipping them the bird. It's like, we don't want anything to do with you. All of this debt that they already have is paid debt of paper money. You know, what's funny is when they defaulted yesterday, there was no repercussion on any of the European markets. The stock actually went up, price of gold, and the silver went down. The price of silver is a paltry under $16 now. You know, the whole world economy didn't bat an eyelash. And so all of this hype about, oh, how terrible it's going to be, nothing happened. Well, the end result is it's all paper money. It's all computer number register money that has no meaning. So they can default on trillions. You know, it's absolutely absurd. It doesn't matter if they default because the money is real anyway. It's like this guy defaulted on his house, and the banker says, "How can you do this?" And he said, "Well, you loaned me air. I'm paying you back with air."
Right.
You know? And it's,
well, the problem is that this debt monster, if we had Glass-Steagall, would be gone immediately. The problem is the debt monster is sucking real credit out of the economy. And see, when you have a decrease in credit, a decrease in velocity of money, which is the primary driver of an economy, it's like an airplane. You need a forward motion to get lift or to lift an aircraft and keep it in the air so it doesn't crash. The same principles apply to the economy. Right now, the forward motion, which is the Baltic Dry Index and other indices, tell us that we're ready to have a worldwide crash. And the globalists are pushing it that way because they want to get rid of physical cash to keep the interest rate low so they may be king of the hill even though it's a very small hill. And they don't want new technologies to fix... Yeah, they don't want encryption. For example, I saw the FBI director on 60 Minutes a few weeks ago talking about this, that they were very upset that Apple and other companies were encrypting cell phones and other things, so even things like Bitcoin and so on. What I want, we've talked about this before, is an encrypted bartering, you know, I call it EBC, or electronic bartering currency, more advanced than the cryptocurrencies. There are 12 of them out there like Bitcoin, where you can barter things, you don't have interest, it's fully encrypted, no one, including the NSA or FBI, can hack into it. A peer-to-peer encrypted network for radio, television, and other communications, so that no government anywhere can get their paws on our communications as private citizens in any country. It's none of their business. Back in a minute. Professor McCANNEY, we talked about other solutions like encrypted, I call EBC, or electronic barter currency, and a point-to-point encrypted communication network, so it completely is unbreakable. The wing generator project is a replacement energy is essential because the grid, no matter what if you want to look at the different eventualities, I was looking at the Storm Arc project that Deborah Devara sent me regarding the earthquake dangers here in California, how it cut off power and gas lines, etc. Well, the same kind of logistical analysis, if you look at the futures, the grid is, for multiple reasons, not going to survive. It won't even survive putting on wind and solar. They did a study almost 2 years ago now here in California that proved it can't even survive putting on the mandated power backup systems of solar and wind. That's why they want smart grid, because they want to have a smart system to literally cut down your usage, so your surges of usage on the grid won't blow the grid to pieces. And they don't make any equipment anymore. It all comes from China. So the grid's not going to make it. So if they don't restructure how we distribute energy, it more surely will crash our civilization faster and more efficiently than if we were invaded by a foreign force or hit with a nuclear bomb. Because some people would survive if you had nukes, but if the power grid goes down, damn few people are going to survive this catastrophe. It's going to be pretty bad.
And right now they're forcing the issue. I want to stress this issue going on in Ukraine and relate it to something that's seemingly unrelated, and that's the explosion of 3 rockets in the last couple of days that were.
You're talking about the SpaceX rockets. You're talking about the SpaceX rockets by our guy that owns PayPal.
Russian launch.
Oh, the Russian launch. Okay, Russian launch. What do you think happened there? Do you think they were hit by directed energy weapons?
Yes, absolutely. And they could have slipped something in the payload cargo bay of the SpaceX. But I don't think so. What I saw is it breaking apart from the outside.
Right.
I don't think it was an explosion from within.
Right.
So anyway, I think and so that was a signal to Russia and anybody else, because Elon Musk talking about eventually going to Mars and bigger rockets, and I think it was a way of telling him that, hey, you're just one of the players and we can do what we want with you too. But the end result is 3 rocket failures in the last 2 days of the same type, where they were well into the launch, and then the payload had a problem. Never do you see that. So this, to me, is a signal from the boys in blue that they're playing with their directed particle beam or laser weapons to destroy weapons. They're trying to signal to Russia that they could destroy Russian nuclear bombs coming back at us. But the reality is the Chinese could take out all of our satellite fleet in one afternoon, and they already have the technology. It's very crude, primitive. They just go up there and they let a lot of metal, shrapnel out in the zone, and that comes flying into the satellite at 17,000 miles an hour and destroys it. And so, this is a game where the U.S. military and Obama, the idiot, he doesn't know anything. He acts tough and like he's in charge.
Right.
They don't understand that the technology that they're dealing with is very vulnerable, and it's a very dangerous deck of cards.
Well, even the Chinese have kinetic weapons to take out satellites. So the idea that we have these fancy space-based weapon platforms, the Chinese already have kinetic weapons that can fry these things and make them into all kinds of shards of space debris in near space. It's ridiculous. Nobody's going to be able to run this system and be in total control of space. And let's get with the program and start collaborating to not put more debris up there and continue fighting when really space should be one of the things that unifies us. We look down and say, oh, look, I don't see borders. It looks like it's one world. Why don't we come together?
Well, if you look back, and what I want to do is review what Wernher von Braun said. Actually, it was his spokesperson that made this public as he was dying. It was Carol Rosen. Dr. Carol Rosen was the president of Fairchild Industries when von Braun was working there also as a vice president. But what von Braun said is his information, and he had this because the New World Order, the bankers were in charge of Germany, the United States, and World War II. But he knew from the inside, because he was working in the German rocket program, that the first wave or first control element would be the Cold War. He predicted that before the Cold War. Then he said the next threat would be terrorism. Well, we've definitely seen that with 9/11. He said the next wave would be the asteroid threat, where and even when he was saying it, Rosen said he would check with, because it's so ridiculous at the time.
An asteroid or comet threat, right? Yeah.
So you understand that with Project Lightning Rod, that asteroid that was in Russia about a year and a half ago was not an asteroid. That was a military-directed weapon, and it comes in smoking. It looks like an asteroid, and then you have the big explosion. And so that was just a sample. That was a shot.
That was one that hit in that was one that was in Chelyabinsk, which is in southern Russia, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That was not an asteroid. That came in at suborbital velocity on an almost horizontal line.
Right. So in other words, it was an asteroid that would be coming in at 35 to 50,000 miles an hour, and that was not in that velocity range.
No, and it was coming in horizontal. It was coming out of a low Earth orbit. And so at any rate, so there's all of this hype that's on the internet now about, asteroid's going to hit Earth in the fall. That's what it's all about. They're playing the... Oh,
that's what they're talking about now. That's why all this... Do you think there's a lot of disinformation out there pushing all this garbage? Yeah.
Absolutely. And the fourth of von Braun's notices was the alien invasion, of flag alien invasion. But what I believe has happened, Obama is now...
Yeah, repeat that because you cut out for just a second.
The alien invasion.
Yeah, repeat that again, Professor McCANNEY, because you cut out.
I believe, can you now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you better now, yeah. Go ahead.
I believe Obama has replaced stage 4, which was the false flag alien invasion, with climate change. And I think they consider that a more capable tool, something that the public in general will accept, even though you and I know
Right.
it's complete baloney.
Well, we're
But
not on the
that's what
Pope
all the
on side
weather
with this
controllers
climate
say.
change garbage. And Sheldon Huber from the Club of Rome convinced him, and now, of course, he's got this special appointeeship with the Vatican. I mean, people don't understand just how the cabal of evil, how far along this game it is. It's not it's an open conspiracy. It doesn't require a lot of intellectual effort, does it?
No, I want to make a point here. Is when Brown was talking about, he said, every one of these stages will be used to weaponize space.
Right.
Saw in the Deagle, they were saying outer space, U.S. general said outer space is the next warfare zone. Outer space has been under treaty since a long time ago to prevent weaponization of outer space, but the United States is pushing and pushing this. And then,
Well,
of
do
course,
you know what they have in a plaque down in the underground city of Schriever Air Force Base, 2 miles down, where I've been in the city, taking care of doctors and patients and so on, and they were working on these classified projects? The plaque at the underground city U.S. Space Command headquarters, Schriever, which is the highest security place in the United States and the world, it says on the plaque, "We are U.S. Space Command, prescient in all 4 realms, in space, in near space, on the oceans, and under the oceans." So, U.S. Space Command basically says, we are the prescient controllers of all space around Earth, from here to the moon. In fact, the director of Space Command told me we are in control of every cubic centimeter of space in our near solar system all the way to Mars. That was 1994, July 10th. Issues we've been talking about. The wing generator program, people need to log on there, and minimum, I would say, it should be $20. But if you want to get a full system, you want to get your money in now because it'll be available by April of next year, people need to realize the grid is going. If you don't have alternative power, whether you're trying to build a community, in fact, one of our projects is we're asking people, they don't have to put any money down, but if they contact Dave and Jean Mitchell, we're going to start setting up what we call pods of surviving civilization. One of the first ones will be here in Southern California, where we'll actually get a large enough group of land that we'll get a number of people that want to contribute. Again, everybody will have a small piece of this piece of land and facility and so on, because at some point, number one, you need to get out of the big cities now. Number two, you need to plan on whether it's a pod here inside America or another country. You need to be on a system that's off-grid, so you've got wing generator power and a way of storing that energy, whether it's deep cycle batteries or light sail or other technology. But you need to be able to have sustainable community, basically a community where you have cross-trained people, whether they have medical, dental, communication, plumbing, electrical, defense, etc., policing, etc., child care, all the other functions, because civilization, as we know it now, is going to go through convulsions because the society, the politicians, and the greedy people that run the things don't want solutions. So we need an encrypted bartering system, an encrypted communication system, a pods of civilization that will survive, and we need to have people realize they need to get off drugs and get on nutraceuticals, Nutrimeds, and be ready to take care of themselves and their health, because the current system as it is, they guarantee, for example, the Supreme Court that they're going to blow up health care in America. Obamacare will guarantee many hospitals and clinics and doctors will go bankrupt, and the system will get so expensive most people won't use it, so they'll die not going to the hospital or getting treatment. And your solutions are involving so many of these issues: wing generator program, encrypted communications, and tier 1 science to deal with astrophysics. This object issue that deals with Planet X, because you have a lot of information on it, we are seeing extreme weather already. We are seeing things that are affecting it, but they completely twist the information, don't they, to their own purposes, whether it's the remote viewing people or the other idiots trying to say that it's all in and it's all going to happen in September or something. How do they know? We don't have any evidence of that, do we?
Not at all. And I just saw these emails.
Yes.
Have been Donardo and Day and Masters. These talkers have been quiet for some time, but it's very interesting that they first they're all-out barrage trying to keep my name associated with Planet X. This has nothing to do with it. I haven't looked into this, but they were told a long time ago to cease and this.
Right.
And literally, they just went out from crawled back woodward. It's, you know, to have them come out full bore today is very telling.
Right.
You know, so obviously they're backed by the disinformation crew, which is, you know, that comes out from the CIA support groups. You know, masters.
Well, they want to control the flow of information, and they don't give you credit. If they gave you credit, then you could respond to all of this and say, hey, I don't agree with this or that thesis. We do have a danger from recurring space objects and extreme galactic and solar winds and gamma rays, etc. We do have problems with gamma bursts and so on. We do have problems with nearer space objects. We had one that was 2.5 miles across the inner solar system, close enough that it was just a couple lunar diameters away from Earth. That's a pretty big object, and people don't realize that just happened a couple months ago. So what's going on is we're not being told about real issues, and the issues that aren't real right now or are gradually increasing that are causing trouble, amplified by geoengineering, which the government denies, and they're screwing up the weather majorly. And in fact, this is all by design because they want to depopulate the West. They want to cause catastrophe and food shortage worldwide. They want to push us into what's called resilient cities. We talked about this with Deborah Tavares. And people need to know this is not a damn conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy fact. And people need to get over it. They need to get over their willingness to spit at the witnesses and the news gatherers and the researchers and the people in the inside track that are saying, you know, this is a real problem. We could deal with it if we just get real about it rather than trying to pretend it's not happening. But the fact is, Tier 1 science, we need to collaborate with Russia and China. We need to start facing the fact that we are in a, if you want to call a solar shooting gallery, and that, yeah, there are things out there that are going to affect us, but let's deal with real science rather than speculation, right?
Yeah. What's going on right is clear that I am making headway in so many fields right now, probably a dozen fields where, for example, in the last week alone, 3 major science projects, search projects and satellites, etc., verified 100% my theoretical. And so this is very disturbing because a lot of people are listening to my voice about other issues too, the issue with Russia or with Greece, etc. Not only science issues, but all the wing generator replacing world energy. Really, advice really will do that. But so this misinformation about trying to ruin my name is expected, but that just shows that what I'm saying is right on. They are trying anything to shut down what I'm doing.
Right. In fact, you're doing field studies around the world to kind of look at these issues. You've been a number of places, which I won't mention, or in various parts of the world. And you're looking at space weather and these other issues, so you want to bring out some real science, which is why you have your DVDs and books. And you talk about near space objects and about extreme weather and action at a distance, the electric universe and the plasma physics of weather. And what's happened is they've weaponized the planet. They can trigger off earthquakes and volcanoes. They had this movie come out here with The Rock, who's got the best starry eyes and shocky eyes I think I've ever seen. And he did pretty passable acting. But the idea is to literally embed in the psyche of people that, yeah, a 7.8 plus earthquake can happen. In fact, I watched this storm, arc storm, it's called, video by a California geologist here presenting just in a few months ago that Deborah Tavares taped, that in fact 15,000 people would be injured and 1,800 would be dead, according to the least scenario, not the worst possible scenario, just the least. And that's only to start with, not including all the fires and devastation and starvation and violence would happen afterwards. That's just the first few minutes of this disaster. What people need to understand is we could have noise-canceling technology to release the microquakes. We could have primary water release, which would actually, this is called magmatic water, which would cut down on the chances of a major superquake. We could pump the water out, as you say, out of the caldera, near the caldera of the Yellowstone Park, which would cause a super caldera explosion, because remember, all these magmatic explosions, including Mount St. Helens, were all driven by steam. All driven by steam, and people need to grasp that.
And the knowledge of the steam comes with the magma.
Yeah, it's called magmatic water. The steam comes up with the magma. In fact, I saw Steve Jacobson from Northwestern University said water lowers the melting temperature of rock. Rock melts in the outer mantle because of the presence of water in ringwoodite rock. And it's 1% of the content, and when the hydrogen and oxygen come out and form water, the rock melts and forms magma. That's where it comes from, that drives earthquakes and volcanoes. And again, the things that form mountains, etc., are caused by the Earth's crust actually periodically slides on the mantle of the Earth, and you get the giant sliding of continents jamming up against each other, creating mountainous ridges. People need to understand that.
You need extra solar system or something coming by to make things move sideways.
Exactly.
That's one of the issues that I pointed out, that you need a massive extra solar system object to come by to set a gravity wave that creates the mountains.
Right, and what a gravity wave is a distortion of time-space. It's almost like a wrinkle in time, if you want to call it. And that wrinkle in time can create pockets of superheated...
It's the same thing as the tide in the ocean.
Right,
people don't realize that there's a tide in the earth every time the moon goes around.
It's a time and waves and time-space. How's that? And those waves and energy can create pockets of superheated plasma in the upper atmosphere, forming trumpet sounds like the Bible talks about trumpets. They can hit the magma in this ringwoodite layer 400 to 700 kilometers deep and trigger off magmatic water and volcanoes and earthquakes. And the globalists are trying to fiddle and see if they can control the changes in the weather that are occurring because of this. And they're doing a poor job on purpose because they want famine, they want food and pestilence, and they want war. And their idea is they're going to try to save their butts underground in hotels, they call them. And the fact is, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. It's an ugly fact, and we can stop it and get control of it if we combine our scientific minds and deal with Tier 1 science. Thank you, Professor McCANNEY. We'll have you back on soon to continue our discussion.